Jason was talking into his radio when suddenly, his voice just disappeared, as if the air had decided it wouldn't carry any words anymore. He still had his thumb on the push-to-talk button, and for a moment, his mouth kept moving, like he thought the sound would come back. The reflective tape on his vest caught the ramp light each time he shifted his shoulders, and oddly enough, that was the only thing that still felt real. My decibel meter dropped so quickly that I honestly thought the display had glitched. Then it pinned at an impossibly low level, holding steady without even a hint of movement, like it was stuck.
Eyes down.
Jason's hand hit my jacket, urging me into a crouch before I could react. I focused on the concrete. A pale stripe started to form across the tarmac ahead of us. Fine grit fell in a neat line, as if someone was sifting it through a narrow slot, advancing steadily under the warm ramp lights.
Don't cross it.
The tie-down chains piled next to a metal stair cart began to vibrate in a slow 3-beat rhythm, and the cart responded, not rattling, but pulsing gently, almost like something heavy was moving above us, taking steps I couldn't hear. My chin lifted instinctively, but Jason caught it just in time.
Don't.
He tightened his grip on the back of my neck hard enough that my teeth clicked together. I kept my eyes down as the grit line crept closer, its edge clean enough to trace. Just an hour earlier, I had pulled into the public lot outside the service fence, with my window down, expecting the usual airport night sounds. The fence should have been hissing in the wind, and something on the ramp should have been whining or clattering, even if it was a quiet night. There's always some machine that never fully shuts off. That night, the windsock on the far pole moved in tiny flicks, but it felt like the soundscape had thinned out, as if everything had turned down a notch without anyone telling me. My phone fluctuated between 1 bar, then none, then 1 again, doing that as I stood there, just like Jason had warned. I grabbed my camera bag, a cheap handheld decibel meter I used for fieldwork, and the printed memo he'd texted me earlier. The memo was plain, lacking a logo or letterhead, just blocks of rules. One line was circled so hard, the pen had dented the paper. If the meter drops and stays down, eyes down, move inside, engines running if possible. Jason wasn't the type to pull pranks. He was the kind who labeled extension cords and replaced batteries before they died. I walked to the badge gate, standing under a pole light that made the wet fence glisten like wire. The air smelled like cold pavement mixed with old exhaust. A minute later, a figure emerged from the ops office, a reflective vest flashing white each time he crossed a patch of light.
You're Evan?
He talked in a pretty typical way, with the radio attached to his vest making little chirps. He kept fiddling with it almost instinctively. You could tell he was the kind of guy who had probably spent a lot of late nights out on the ramp.
You got the temp badge?
I held it up. He scanned it, the gate clicked, and we stepped through as if we had crossed into a work zone that didn't want visitors.
Before you start filming, I'm saying this once. When it starts, don't look up, don't tilt your head, don't sweep a light upward, keep your eyes on the concrete, and move inside.
He watched my face like he was gauging whether I was going to argue. I didn't say I believed him or that I didn't. I just held up the decibel meter. The ramp lights made the little screen glow pale green. It was reading normal background noise in the low 40s, rising a bit when a tug rolled by in the distance.
That's fine right now.
We started walking toward the de-icing pad, passing a row of light poles and a low-maintenance hangar squatting at the edge of the ramp, dark and securely locked. The taxiway stretched out in front of us, a long, straight run, blacktop and paint lines blurring into the dark. The nearest staffed building was the ops office behind us, a few hundred yards away, while the hangar was closer but usually locked. Jason kept to the edge of the pad, like the center mattered.
If it hits and it's just a blip, whatever. But if it hits and holds, don't get curious. Get small and get inside.
He said it like you'd warn someone not to touch a live wire. We passed a metal stair cart parked near a pile of tie-down chains. The chains were thick and greasy, coiled in heavy loops that looked wrong under the light. Jason's radio crackled with a short burst of chatter, then clipped off as if someone had pinched the signal.
Ignore that.
I instinctively raised my camera towards the light poles, then forced myself to aim it down. I didn't like how quickly his rules started to dictate my movements. Jason lifted his radio again, making a routine check-in. Nothing dramatic, just the kind of phrase you say 100 times during your shift. Then his voice vanished. The air around us felt dead while everything else continued moving. The meter dropped and held like it had hit a brick wall. The grit stripe formed and began to advance across the tarmac like it had every right to be there.
Eyes down.
Jason guided me into a crouch, and I focused my gaze on the concrete again. The pale stripe was already halfway across the tarmac, fine grit falling in a narrow band that didn't drift or scatter. It landed as if something above us was shedding dust in neat lines. The stair cart started vibrating again, and the tie-down chains responded in that slow 3-beat rhythm. It wasn't random. It was the same pattern, repeating with a pause like footsteps. The urge to look up hit me hard, immediate, like my body demanded validation even though every rule said I couldn't have it.
Don't.
Jason's grip on the back of my neck tightened, and I stayed down. A ramp light pole a few yards away swayed once. It wasn't a wind wobble. It bent slightly at the top, as if something had brushed against it, then settled back. Jason lifted his radio and pressed the talk button.
Ops, you got me?
Nothing came back. It wasn't static, and it wasn't dead air. It was just silence, and the radio might as well have been a block of plastic. He unclipped it, held it near his ear, and pressed again.
Ops,
Still nothing.
it's on us. Move.
He stayed crouched and started walking, his eyes fixed on the concrete ahead like he was following an invisible line only he could see. I followed him, camera pressed to my chest, lens pointed down. The quiet bubble enveloped us. I could tell because the decibel meter stayed pinned at that ridiculous low level, and the grit stripe kept advancing, as if it were marking a boundary ahead of us. Jason pointed to a tug parked near the edge of the pad.
Get it running.
He climbed in with stiff movements and turned the key. The tug's engine turned over. I could see the vibration in the hood and a slight tremor in the headlight housing. I barely heard it. The sound didn't just grow quieter, it hollowed out, like the engine was running far away. Jason revved it hard, like he was trying to break through that silence. The tug shook, tires flexing against the concrete, but the noise around us remained muted.
It's canceling it. It's not being drowned out.
The grit line advanced again, crossing under the tug, creeping toward the light poles as if it had a destination in mind. The 3-beat vibration hit the chain pile again, stronger this time, and the stair cart shook like a tuning fork. I felt it through my boots, not as sound but as movement traveling through the concrete.
Hangar.
Jason eased the tug forward, slow and careful, like the edge of that bubble was something he didn't want to disturb. I stayed close, head down, keeping my eyes on the rear tire and the paint line beside it. The grit stripe slid under the tug's front tire and left a pale smear on the rubber, like chalk. We moved toward the hangar with our heads down, using the grit stripe like a moving guide we could track. I dropped a wrench. It slipped from my glove when I adjusted my grip on the camera bag. It bounced on the concrete right in front of my feet. I saw it hit, bounce, and settle, feeling the vibration in my soles. I didn't hear a thing.
Keep moving. Leave it.
The grit was falling heavier now, still in straight bands, its edge sharp under the lights, like a line you could measure with a ruler. Jason reached into the tug and grabbed a portable air horn canister.
I'm only going to try this once. Don't lift your head.
He held it low, aimed at the ground, and pressed the button. The horn canister jerked in his grip, and his wrist tensed like it was blasting at full volume. Nearby, the sound got swallowed up. A faint hollow whisper emerged instead. not matching what my eyes were seeing. Farther out across the ramp, beyond that boundary, I heard a delayed echo that sounded normal. Jason released the button quickly.
It caught that.
The bubble tightened toward the light poles as if it were responding to his attempt. The grit stripe twitched slightly as it moved forward, and the nearest light pole swayed again without any wind to explain it. The decibel meter flickered for the first time since the drop, jittering like it couldn't decide on a number. Jason slowed the tug. Behind us, a second pale stripe was forming, coming from the direction of the service gate. It wasn't the same line looping around. It was another one, separate, moving in like a second front.
It's cutting us off.
The two silent zones started to merge, and the grit began falling heavier, still in straight bands like fallout from a massive surface. Jason stayed crouched and signaled with 2 fingers toward the hangar.
That door better be open.
We moved with our heads down, the quiet bubble moving along with us. The tug's engine looked like it was working hard, the whole body vibrating. But the sound nearby stayed wrong. Too thin, too far away. The second bubble behind us kept closing in, and the route back to the gate disappeared without either of us needing to check. The hangar's roof responded to the 3-beat rhythm with a slow scraping pulse, like something was dragging along the metal surface above us. It didn't come through as normal sound, but I felt it in my teeth as a shiver that didn't belong.
Door. Now.
Jason climbed out and moved low to the personnel door, his shoulders tense as if he were bracing for something. He yanked the handle. It was locked.
Come on.
He slammed it again, hard. The grit stripe reached the base of the hangar wall and piled up in a thin line, almost like the boundary had a physical edge that the dust could cling to. The scraping pulse hit the roof again. 3 beats. Pause. 3 beats. Jason dug for keys in his pocket, his fingers fumbling as if they didn't want to cooperate.
Stay down.
He found the right key, turned it, and the door popped open. The moment the door cracked, sound rushed back into my ears all at once. Inside the hangar, a compressor cart was running, loud and harsh, making a noise that usually forces you to shout just to be heard. In that moment, it felt like a protective barrier. The decibel meter leaped back up to the 60s instantly, then wavered like it had been freed from a trap. Jason pushed the door open, pulled me inside, and slammed it shut. The latch clanged, sharp and real, and I hated how relieved that made me feel.
Keep your head down anyway.
Jason moved to the small, reinforced window in the door and leaned in close, not lifting his head at all, just enough to peek outside at the ground. Grit continued to fall outside, heavier now, the stripe inching along the tarmac toward the hangar like it wanted to follow us inside. It stopped at the threshold, dust building up in a neat line like it had hit an invisible barrier. The quiet outside pressed against the hangar door as if it had weight. The compressor noise stayed contained within. It didn't bleed out. It was as if sound hit the doorway and got stopped.
Under a roof. That's the only thing that's worked.
I finally spoke, my voice barely above a whisper. How many times have you done this?
Enough.
The ramp light outside started strobing, a faulty fixture flickering in hard bursts that turned the tarmac into frames. During one of those flashes, I caught a glimpse through the narrow window. It didn't resemble any plane or helicopter, and there was nothing rigid about it. Nothing with a fuselage or a rotor. A wide, folded membrane hung low over the ramp lights, darker than the night around it, with jointed filaments that dangled towards the light poles. It was low enough that those filaments swayed the tops of the poles, brushing against them like fingertips. On the next flash, it shifted again, not moving forward, but sliding sideways, as if it didn't need air.
Eyes down, now.
Jason yanked my sleeve hard enough that the fabric bunched. I dropped my gaze to the ground in the hangar and kept it there, jaw clenched. The compressor kept hammering away, filling the air. The grid at the threshold shifted, the line outside slowly retracting like a tide pulling back. The quiet outside started to loosen in small increments, and the decibel meter stopped trying to pin itself down when I held it close to the window.
When we go loud. We stay in the cab. We don't look up.
Jason cracked the door and peeked down at the ground outside.
Now.
We moved out together, crouched and quick, and the sound hit me strangely after the silence, like my ears didn't know how to process it. Jason jumped into the tug, turned it on, and revved the throttle higher than usual. The engine screamed, and this time, I heard it clearly. I climbed into the passenger seat and slammed the door shut.
Don't make me tell you twice.
I kept my eyes on the dashboard until the numbers became the only things I trusted. Jason drove us straight to the service gate, the engine noise continuous, like a siren we were dragging behind us. In the side mirror, I saw a pale stripe snapping into place behind us across the ramp, fast and precise. Jason didn't slow down. The gate scanner recognized his badge as we passed. The arm lifted, and we shot through the fence line. The second we cleared the fence, the decibel meter ticked back to normal like nothing had happened. The world sounded like the world again. Jason kept driving until we parked near the ops office, far from the poles, far from the open ramp.
That's it for tonight.
He finally glanced at me then, tired eyes, pale face under the fluorescent lights.
You got your proof. Don't come back for a better shot.
My hands were still shaking, the camera strap trembling against my wrist. I checked the decibel meter log. The drop was there. Flatline low, held for 1 minute 38 seconds. Timestamped 11:17 p.m. The audio file on my camera was worse. The ambient spectrum collapsed, leaving only a faint, steady subharmonic pulse beneath everything. Slow and constant, like a heartbeat that didn't belong to any machine. I didn't sleep well after that, and I couldn't convince myself that what I experienced was limited to the airport. The next morning, I sent Jason a simple question and received no reply. I tried calling, but it went straight to voicemail. The friend who forwarded me the memo wasn't answering either, and that really unsettled me. These weren't people who just went quiet because they forgot. That afternoon, I listened to the training tape again. Alone, volume higher than I wanted.
This is the Quiet Air Protocol training, focused on ramp and de-icing operations. If you're hearing this, you've either been assigned to a night shift or you've asked too many questions. You won't get a warning you can trust. You'll think the wind died. You'll think your radio failed. You'll think your ears are clogged. Do not look up to confirm anything. Do not aim a light above the horizon line. The event presents as a measurable drop in ambient sound sustained with visible movement still present. Windsocks may sway, straps may flutter, engines may still run. Your perception of sound nearby won't match what you can see. Once the meter holds below threshold, treat the pad as contaminated. Eyes down, move inside. If you don't have an inside, find a roof. Keep machinery running if it's already running. Don't test it with a horn. Don't shout. Don't use your phone light to search the sky. You may see fine pale fallout. It may appear as a straight band across the ground and advance steadily. Do not cross the band. Don't step into the clean edge. Track it like weather and move away from it. If a second band forms behind you, you are being corralled. Your job is not to solve it. Your job is to survive it. Get inside and get loud.
The tape never explained what it was. It never named it. It was careful with its wording, as if even saying it out loud was part of the mistake. 2 nights later, back at my cabin, the air was cold and clear. The sky a sharp winter black, the kind that makes the stars look like pinholes. I stepped onto the porch to check something mundane. A loose screw on the railing post. And I heard a passenger jet far above, steady and distant. Halfway across the sky, the jet sound cut out. It didn't fade or shift pitch as it passed. It just stopped, like someone had snipped the audio track. The trees still moved. The little wind vane by the shed still twitched. I pulled out my phone, opened the decibel meter app, and watched the number drop in a way that felt all too familiar. I kept my eyes on the porch boards, backing towards the door, and I went inside without glancing up. When the quiet lifted, it didn't announce itself. It just released and let normal night noises slip back into place. I went back out later, watching the porch rail. There was a thin stripe of pale grit on the top board, straight as if someone had laid it down with a ruler. I wiped my finger through it, and the dust clung, fine and dry, out of place in the cold, damp air. I bagged a sample anyway. I needed something tangible to hold on to. Jason still hasn't replied. The friend who sent me the memo hasn't replied either. I still have the decibel log and the audio clip. And I still find myself on clear nights, listening for the moment when the world goes thin. If you made it all the way to the end, drop eyes down in the comments so I know you were here. And tell me what you'd do first if the sound around your house just shut off, like completely gone, but everything else was still moving. I mean it. What would you do? And if you want more stories like this, hit like, subscribe, all that stuff, so you don't miss the next one. All right, I'm out. I'll see you next time.